If your business had its own version of the 12 days of Christmas, it wouldn't be filled with partridges and pear trees. It would be filled with metrics you ignored, systems you meant to fix in March, and a handful of, wait, did I ever send that email moments?
But don't panic. This episode is your end of the year business reset. We're walking through the 12 things every business owner should do before the end of the year so you can clean up the chaos, head into January confident, and stop dragging the same problems into a new calendar year, like that one box of Christmas decorations you keep forgetting to label.
Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9 to 5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions, the last episode of 2025. And Branda and I could not resist a good old themed episode. I mean, we had to. So we had to. So we're going to hop through 12. It sounds like a lot. And also, you can totally do this in January. It's not the end of the world if you're like, I have to do all this month. There's only 3 days left. You can totally take some of this with you into January, but these are 12 things that we think you should think about, revisit, 12 questions to ask yourself before you really come back from this holiday break. So, Christmas business thing number one. It is time to, it's scary, but it is time to review your revenue.
Especially this year.
Especially this year, yes. It is time to review your revenue and your expenses. And this is helpful, to get ready for tax season as well. But take a look and evaluate things like your total revenue, your total profit, which products performed the best for you in general, whether that's like a service or a product in general. I did this next thing a lot in October, going through expenses to cut or optimize. Like, do I really need to pay for an hour long Zoom? I don't know. So these are things to think about if you're not using it as much. Other things in terms of revenue, to start, to stop, or to increase your efforts in if you find that there was something in particular that really worked for you in 2025. The question to ask yourself at the end of business thing one is, what brought money in really easily and what felt like it really drained you and you don't want to do it anymore?
Okay, and then thing number two is evaluate your offers. So this can work whether you are a service provider or whether you do have digital products or memberships or whatever that might be. So which offers worked and which didn't? Again, let's say you're a service provider. Are there certain services this year that you booked a ton and others that maybe you didn't talk about enough, that you didn't book as much as you wanted to? Evaluate that. If you're selling digital products, or like memberships, courses, things like that, which things sold really well and which maybe didn't. Maybe you focused on a particular product line and actually just didn't get up to the revenue you were looking for. And maybe you neglected others that in previous years did do really well. So kind of look at that. Look at pricing checks. So if something didn't perform as well as it could have, maybe you can adjust the price, or maybe you sold a ton of a service or course and you can give that price a little bit of a bump and see if that does help you bring in some new revenue in 2026. You can look at delivery improvements. Again, if you're a service provider or you have a course or membership, what does your onboarding and offboarding look like? And can you improve that to enhance the offer? Which offers do you plan to continue next year? And which might need to be cut, paused, or revamped after you kind of do that evaluation? So the question to ask yourself here is, if you could only sell one offer next year, which one would you keep and why? That doesn't mean you have to eliminate all of them, but that might give you an indication of when you're doing your planning, which we talked about in a recent episode number, I believe it was 95, about annual and quarterly planning. When you're doing your planning, how can you maybe highlight this offer more and make sure that you're consistently talking about it in your content?
Next up, business Christmas thing number 3, analyzing your launch performance. So 1, 2, and 3 kind of do all go together, but with analyzing your launch performance, I want you to specifically think about when you were making targeted promotions towards a course, a membership, a series of products, what have you, when you were making a concerted effort to launch something. What worked? What didn't? Did you hit your goals or maybe not? Were your expectations realistic in your goals? And what type of launch style, like if you did a concerted effort to promote something like a webinar or a challenge or even a week-long email series, what did you like about that launch style? What did you not like? Would you do the same thing again? What kind of tweaks would you make? So, really thinking closely and carefully about your launch performance. And the question to ask yourself here, it's kind of a tough one, but did your results, your launch results, match your expectations? Or was it actually your expectations with your launch that were the real problem and not your launch itself?
That is a tough question.
Yikes.
Okay, number 4 on our list is to review your email list health. So this is definitely, I'm always a fan of this one. First is list growth. So maybe you had a goal this year for how much you were going to grow your list. Did you meet that goal? And if you didn't, what might be some reasons why? Maybe you didn't participate as many bundles as you wanted to. Maybe you didn't talk about your email list as much as you should have. What does your email engagement look like? So, did your metrics go up or down? And I like to look at metrics monthly, but at least quarterly, I would recommend looking at them. If you didn't do that throughout the year, though, see if you can just kind of go through your emails as you send them throughout the year and see if something changed. Sometimes looking at that just overview of like, this is what your all-time metrics looks like doesn't really give you a picture of month by month, quarter by quarter. So I recommend doing that. Look at the biggest unsubscribe. So were there particular emails where you were getting a lot of unsubscribes that might tell you if a certain message or piece of content or offer was just a bit off and didn't really hit your audience like you intended it to? Or is inside of a certain sequence that you have, are you seeing a lot of unsubscribes? That might tell you that you need to retire a certain freebie or make adjustments to the freebie, things like that. Also look at top performing emails. So in general, recommend looking at your top performing content, but what emails can you reuse next year? What messages or offers can you continue to talk about if you saw that it performed really well? Or maybe there was like a blog that you talked about or a podcast in that email. So maybe that's something you need to bring back. You don't need to be creating all new content next year. So what can you repurpose? And then of course, do a nice good list cleaning, especially if you're like me and you've had clean your email list on your to-do list for quite some time and you haven't yet done it. The end of the year would be a great time. So you
Sure
can
is.
walk into January, the nice fresh list. So the question to ask yourself is, are you building a list of excited buyers or collecting ghost subscribers who never open a thing? And then probably the follow-up question is, what are you going to do about that? So
Bum, bum, bum. Okay, question, or I should say business thing number 5, checking your systems and your automations. So, if you have funnels that are running, this can obviously pair back with revenue and your email list that we just talked about. But if you have systems or automations running of any type, is anything broken or outdated? I know sometimes it's really easy to like set and forget funnels, but let's make a concerted effort to remember them this time of year and go ahead and check and make sure that everything is like still working, no zaps broke, are broken, anything like that. It's also a great time to make sure that your welcome sequences are still welcoming and firing, and that everything's still delivering as intended, that nothing, happened and something has stopped working that you were unaware of. And then, of course, this could also sort of tie back to thinking about your revenue and your tools, but make sure that we are decluttering any tools we don't use. If you haven't used deadline funnel, for example, once this year, like why do we still have it? If you are on the highest plan of Zapier, they're not going to tell you. So make sure that you downgrade it before the year turns over. You can always email Kit or Flowdesk, if you have your email provider, if you need to downgrade your plan, if after you clean your email list in step 4, make sure that you're on, the correct plan and check all of your systems and things like that. So take a second and also ask yourself, is there a system that keeps breaking or slowing you down or something that just feels clunky? How can you fix it? Or is it even necessary to fix it? Is it something that you can just get rid of instead?
Okay, number 6 on the list, we're halfway through now, is audit your content. We kind of talked about this a bit with the email marketing, but now we're just looking at content as a whole. So whether that be blogging, YouTube, email, Instagram, wherever you are hanging out and you are sharing content, you want to look at what performed the best because, again, why not repurpose and reuse? And also, I can give you insight into what your audience is interested in hearing more of or what is resonating with your audience. So, note the themes that your audience has responded to. And I would even go beyond just themes, but like note the messaging that your audience has responded to. When you use a certain type of messaging, do you see more sales? Do you see more engagement? And try to repeat and reuse more of that in your content going forward. And then also reuse and repurpose, like I said, high performing content. You can identify gaps. And I would even say in your auditing, if you felt like this year, maybe you were in a lot of different places and you felt like, I need to adjust some things with my capacity going forward. Is there an area where you've been producing content? And yes, you can hear a baby. So hopefully that goes well into the podcast. Is there an area you've been hanging out that maybe you want to pull back on? So maybe you've been producing a lot of content for Instagram and Instagram is not performing like you want it to. Maybe you stop using Instagram. Maybe you produce less content for Instagram. This is a great time to evaluate what you want to be producing content on going forward. So the question to ask yourself is which pieces of content consistently performed well and how can you repurpose them instead of reinventing the wheel?
Let's take a look now at number 7. And number 7 is not something that you can just do in a day. I'll preface it with that. But revisiting your ideal client and your messaging. 2025 has been a weird year. People aren't behaving the same way that they did at the beginning of 2025. So let's think about a couple things. Like, has your audience shifted? Is your audience or are your audience's needs different at the end of this year than they were either last year or at the beginning of this year? And making sure that your messaging is going to fully reflect your current expertise. So that's thinking back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. If you are evaluating your offers and services and things that you want to provide, making sure that all of your content that you're putting out reflects, what it is that you are currently offering. So, question to ask yourself, has your audience evolved or changed? And does your messaging truly speak to where they are right now? And this is not going to be a simple task. You're going to need to test out some new messaging and see what is getting the replies, the comments, the downloads, what have you, to really make sure that your messaging is aligned for the next year.
Okay, number 8, refresh your website and sales page. And I'm gonna hate on Melanie for a second with this one, but there have been several times this year where I've had to tell Melanie that she had something on her website that was really outdated.
It's true. It's very true.
So this is a great time to go through. And if you have, let's say you have a banner at the top of your website that's like promoting a sale or something, or it says like booking for December. And now it's like, I don't know, a totally different month and we're past December, then you probably should adjust that. So look for outdated info. Even like your about page has anything, about you changed in the last year that maybe you should update or anything changed about your business. So removing old offers, updating offers. That's something I had to do recently when I adjusted my membership was like, oh yeah, now I need to go through every part on my website where I talk about my membership and adjust it. Also, this is a great chance to improve SEO. So go on to Google Search Console. If you haven't been tracking that throughout the year, I recommend maybe making a plan for that in 2026. But you can at least go through now and see if there's some areas where you can adjust your SEO. So is there a keyword that you are ranking for that maybe you can use throughout your website more? Or is there something that you're not ranking for that you want to be? And how can you make that adjustment? Another thing is adding recent reviews and testimonials. So, whether you are a service provider or you sell digital products, you likely got some new reviews and testimonials this year. So, what places can you update so that, obviously you have more reviews for people to pull from, but also just more recent stuff? Because if you're like me, my testimonials have been on there for quite some time. And so having some fresh ones could help people who might be visiting my website and kind of scoping things out. Also, if you're a service provider, something I am doing and plan to do in 2026 is update my case studies and portfolio. That's something I haven't done in a while. So that's also something you might want to update. So, question to ask yourself: if a stranger landed on your site today, would they immediately understand what you do and the results that you help people get?
Number 9, not as exciting, arguably my least favorite, but getting your finances and everything ready for tax season. I personally like to have all of my taxes done and filed and all set by like February 2nd. I'm one of those people who just hates it, so I like to get it over with. So make sure that you have, paid any sort of outstanding invoices. If you're not doing your own books, have a CPA, a bookkeeper picked out that you want to use. Hopefully, you already have a good relationship with one. Thinking about anything that you can possibly, write off, gathering any questions that you might have to ask them as you go into tax season, considering depending on your income, does it make sense to become an S corp if you're not already, or, are you going to stay with being an LLC? These are just some things you might want to consider thinking about as you move into tax season. So, question to ask yourself: what financial tasks are you procrastinating that you will be thankful for that you handle before it's an absolute emergency and you have to figure it out this week? Give yourself a little extra time this quarter one to prepare for your taxes.
Yeah, I need that one. I'm the person who procrastinates. Okay, number 10 is celebrate your wins. So this might seem really corny, but especially when you're a solopreneur, you don't have other people who are acknowledging you, who are checking in on you and saying, "Hey, how is this going? Oh, wow, I saw that you did this and you accomplished that." I think it can feel easy to roll from one thing to a next, and we never actually stop and think, "Wow, what did I do this year?" And especially if you were like me and 2025 wasn't the year that you expected it to be revenue wise and things like that, it can feel like that is the thing to focus on and be like, "Oh, well, I didn't have the win because I didn't make as much as I did last year." But there were big things that did happen this year that were still accomplishments. So, what big wins, small wins? If you have a team, what team wins can you celebrate? If you launch anything, where did you see success with that? And again, I think it's easy to say, "Well, I didn't meet my launch goal, so that's not a win." But what other areas could you consider a win? Were you more consistent this time? Did you have more energy during your launch? Did anyone join, right? Celebrate even the fact that someone came into your space and bought something during your launch, or any personal accomplishments. Were you juggling like caring for a parent while you were also running a business? Like that's a big deal. Were you, juggling childcare and caring for a child while you're doing a business? That's something to celebrate. So, what's one win, big or small, that you haven't acknowledged but deserves a moment of celebration? And make sure that you take some time during the season to actually stop and give yourself a pat on the back.
Very important, definitely, to celebrate wins. And I don't really know anybody who does it enough. So give yourself
Yeah.
time and permission to celebrate it. Okay, number 11. So let's set our big goals for the new year. So we talked in our most recent previous joint episode before this, episode 95. If you want a little bit more of a deep dive on this, tune back to episode 95 to listen in. But the abbreviated version of it is making sure you choose anywhere between 2 and 4 like major priorities for you next year. Of course, they do not all have to be business goals. You can definitely choose some, personal things about how you might like to feel with your business. Or, of course, you can choose whatever goals make you happy, if it's revenue or new members in your membership, for example. Then Reverse engineer those goals and milestones by thinking about a quarterly focus and then even perhaps a monthly focus, how you're going to make sure that you do your best at least to achieve what you want in this next year. Try to avoid having a new goal each week, new year, 47 new goals. Let's try and keep it to like the 2 to 4 major priorities as you go into the next year. So the question to ask yourself there is, if your business could accomplish only 3 things in the next year, what are the priorities that would move the needle the most and make you also feel the best about yourself and your business?
All right. And we made it to number 12, which is to rest and reset. I know we just gave you like a long list of things that your business needs to do and that you need to check in with on your business, but also having white space and time to not think about business at all, even though we all know that's really hard when you have a little business baby you're taking care of. It is really important to have downtime. And whether that be like seasonal, maybe have like big spurts of downtime where you take vacations or you step away from business, or whether that be like a CEO week or a CEO day each week, or maybe even a CEO hour. I don't know, whatever you can squeeze in to create some of that white space. Also, maybe working on your boundaries this year. If you found that you were kind of over capacity this year, that you did feel a little more burnt out than usual. I think a lot of us felt like we had to really hustle hard this year to get the same results that we got in previous years. So if you're feeling that way, maybe there's some places that you can put in some boundaries to create some more of that space in your business. So that'd be like not working on the weekends or not working some of the weekends, not working certain days. Like maybe you can't take the whole weekend off, but you can take a Saturday off, right? Each week. So finding ways to essentially energize yourself so that you're not fried when you get into Q2, Q3, and you're like, how am I going to get through the rest of this year? And with that in mind, on that same note, we're going to be taking a break from the podcast. It's something that Melanie and I have been going back and forth on and discussing for a while. And I think we could both agree that this year was definitely, we were hustling hard this year in our
Mhm.
own businesses. We are also feeling a bit fried. And I think we're both just kind of like wanting to try out some new things and how our business looks going into 2026. I obviously have a baby now that I'm not really sure how my capacity is going to look like going into the new year. And I know Melanie has her own thing she's experimenting with in her business. So we're going to take a break. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, other than for Q1, we're kind of just leaving the pod where it is. Won't be releasing any new episodes. And we're going to revisit in March and kind of see what we want to do going forward from there. So we will update you on kind of what we decide. But for now, we're going to build in a bit of rest and reset in our business by stepping back on some content that we normally produce. And a question to ask yourself if you are kind of looking to create some more of that rest in your own business is, what do you need to step away from in order to start the year with more clarity and less burnout? So, hey, at least we answered that question for ourselves, Melanie.
Right? One thing down. Thank you so much for hanging out with us over the last nearly 2 years. This podcast will remain a resource. It will still be up. If you have any questions about any of the episodes or just want to, reconnect, please feel free to reach out to either Branda or I or both of us on Instagram. Again, we might be back in March or April. We are really exercising that quarterly planning and taking a break for right now, but who knows exactly what 2026 will hold. So, again, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on Instagram. It's where we are both the most accessible. And thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much for joining our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode, please head to your listening app and leave a quick rating and review.
If you're on Instagram, share this episode and tag us at Duxbury Digital and at The Relevant Collective. We'd love to hear from you. We'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.